Of course, Brad Stevens waits till I'm out of the country to make two of the biggest trades that we've seen in the last few years for Boston. Drew Holiday, Porzingis, now no longer members of the Boston Celtics. I am out of the country. I'm in Turkey right now, and I'm going to try to make this video short because the internet is pretty trash, and it's going to take probably 7 hours just to upload this. But I want to get my thoughts out there, what I think of these moves, because I think in a vacuum, they're good trades, right? We could talk about Porzingis. I think that's the easier trade to break down first. He has no trade value. Porzingis really throughout the last few years has not had much trade value when you look at what it took for him to go from Dallas to Washington. Dallas didn't get much back. What it took for him to go to Washington to Boston didn't take much back at all. They actually, got some draft picks for taking on Porzingis and now moving him to Atlanta for Georges Niang and a second-round pick swap. This is all about shedding salary. I think Porzingis ideally would have been here for a few more years because he loved Boston. Boston fans loved him. I don't think you could really trust what you see on the internet. But from all of the actual diehard Boston fans, when you go to TD Garden, the way he interacts with the fans, he loved Boston. And I really do think Celtics fans want him to work out. It's just unfortunate. His career thus far has just been filled with injuries. Of course, he had this weird sickness that he was dealing with during the playoffs, which made him basically unplayable against the New York Knicks. But Porzingis will always have that game one in the NBA Finals, and he was a big part, in the regular season these last 2 years. I know as Celtics fans, it's easy to just overlook the regular season and not take it seriously, but he's a big reason why we were top 2 seeds these last 2 seasons. So it's unfortunate the way things ended. He didn't really get to have a full playoff stretch for this Boston team, right? I guess the real stretch we saw was round 1 against Orlando this season. That's really the only time that Porzingis was somewhat healthy for more than a couple game stretch. So unfortunate, but I think it was the right move to make. You didn't have to attach any draft picks as well. It's not like you had to give up a future first round pick or multiple second round picks to get off Porzingis, but rather just a second round pick swap. So that's the easy part of this. Now comes the Drew Holiday trade. The Drew Holiday trade that was predicted by many. Sorry if you hear that background noise, but it was interesting to try to figure out Drew's trade value through all of this because I remember doing a video about a month back just seeing what trade packages are out there for Drew Holiday, and there wasn't a ton. I think the one that came back to a lot of people was to the Mavericks for a PJ Washington type of swap where they're able to maybe get a future pick in return for Drew Holiday, who of course still has trade value. He's still one of the better perimeter defenders in the league. I know he didn't shoot as well last season for Boston, but overall I think he's still a positive offensive player. He can attack closeouts. More than anything, he's bringing leadership and he's bringing high level defense. And for one, I love this for the Blazers. The defensive personnel they're able to put together now with Donovan Clingan. They still got Robert Williams, Kamara is there. Of course, now Drew Holiday is there. That's going to be a real defense that, in 2025 last year, they were a top 10 unit. So I think for them, first of all, it was a good move. For Boston, you get Anthony Simons. And he is not someone that I thought was going to be particularly available for Celtics, right? I think when we talked about Simons trades, it was a lot of Orlando Magic talk, or more than anything, just a place where he can be a true number one offensive option, or at least a lead guard in someone's system. And he probably will be the lead guard in Boston. I know Derek White has been the point guard for the last couple of seasons, but I think Derek White playing off Anthony Simons, along with Jaylen Brown, of course, who's going to be the main initiator in the most important moments, I think Simons works. He showed when he was with Portland during the Dame and CJ McCollum days as a real just straight-up off-ball player, or primarily off-ball player. He can be a lethal three-point shooter. And over these last couple of years, I know his three-point percentage has dropped. His role has changed too, right? When you move off Dame, you move off CJ, all of a sudden Simons becomes the primary offensive initiator, playmaker, just the lead offensive option on this team. So his shots are going to get more difficult. The defensive assignments he faces are going to get more difficult. But now he gets to go into Boston and kind of blend both together, right? He's not going to be asked to, take on the number one defensive assignment, right? You're not going to go up against the New York Knicks and have OG Anunoby on him, for example, right? Jaylen Brown is still going to get a lot of the action in terms of a opposing team's best defender, but he's still going to be asked to be the lead offensive player a lot of the time, right? When Jaylen Brown's sitting on the bench, he becomes your best offensive player. Derek White, Payne Pritchard, and him. You have three guards that can all find their own shot, They can assist others, although none of them are high-level playmakers. I think all of them are fine playmakers. And he could, off the dribble as well, be able to pull up and hit 3-point shots as well as being a really good catch and shoot 3-point shooter. So I think all in all, Brad Stevens did about as good of a job as you can do. I'm trying not to have my Celtics just goggles on and be like, oh my God, every move they make is perfect and it's great. But I think getting Anthony Simons, who's an expiring contract, if he works out, great. If he doesn't, he either expires or you can move him at the deadline potentially. That feels like best case scenario if you're Boston and you're moving off Jrue Holiday, who is going to be making $35 million for the next 3 years into his age 38 season. That's just not something Boston was really able to work with within their payroll. So I think all in all, getting Simons is probably the biggest win that anyone could have imagined if you were a Celtics fan. So again, I'm not trying to be overly positive and be like, oh my God, Brad Stevens did it again. But I think Brad Stevens did it again there. And Porzingis, as we talked about in the beginning, he doesn't have any trade value. The injuries, expiring contract, someone who just has not been able to stay healthy. When he's on the court, he's awesome. He's one of the best rim protectors, one of the best shot blockers, one of the best big man 3-point shooters, one of the best mismatches in the NBA, period. That's who Porzingis is. But this trade and the last, 2 to 3 trades of Porzingis' career has shown that even with all the positives he brings you, the injuries and the upcoming free agency, that just looms over everything, right? No team is going out of their way to trade for Porzingis, who is turning 30 and has all these injuries, so far through his career. So that's going to be it. 7 minutes. Hopefully this does not take me 10 hours to upload. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know if you think these are good trades or if you think they're bad trades, what you would have done, to replace some of these moves. So appreciate you listening. Talk to you guys last time.